All right. Some of you might remember me from the ALE conference in Berlin, where I gave a short talk about how we engage people. I've also been to a number of others. The other one that I spoke to was in Barcelona. So it's really great to be back. People ask me why I keep coming to these conferences and why I stay close to this community, because I'm not a developer. I work mostly in the IT infrastructure side and within change based on IT. So I help change organizations. But one of the things that I realized a number of years ago through a really good friend of mine, some of you might know, is the late, great Grant Rule. Hands up if you remember him. One or two might do that. As far as I was concerned, he was a genius in the space of understanding Agile and the principles of Lean. And we were in the process of writing a book when, unfortunately, he died in a boating accident. So there are a number of talks that still go on in his memory. But what that fired in me was a deeper understanding of the whole process of developing software, and especially what was coming out with the Agile activity. And that the thinking behind Agile, not necessarily the practices, but the thinking and the intention of Agile really excited me, because that fitted very perfectly well with what we were trying to do within Lean. Now, Lean was a little bit older than Agile at that time, and Lean has gone through its growing pains, and it's gone backwards in some cases and moved forwards in others. I'm pleased to say it's making massive leaps forward now. But I'm also seeing some of the things in the Agile movement where they're going backwards and forwards, and they're oscillating, and the very same things that happened to the Lean movement are starting to happen with the Agile movement. So I was very interested in all of that, and I've learned so much about the development space that I'm working now very much on this DevOps issue, about the whole cycle from the development of software and definition with customers, right through the development, the test, then into the infrastructure, then scaling it up, and then supporting it, then retiring it, that whole cycle. So that's really what I'm mostly interested in. So I want to thank you and this community for giving me that knowledge, because that has certainly helped me in the infrastructure space. So that's a big thank you. So this presentation is going to be, I think it's a personal journey. Some of you will have seen some of these slides before, but there's a different story going to come out with these slides. I'm going to tell you a lot more of the personal triumphs and disasters through some of this. I'm going to face some real hard issues about change. I'm going to challenge what it is that makes Agile and Lean work, and what we think makes it work, and find out actually it doesn't. So I really want to challenge that. And the reason I want to do this as the opening keynote, because you've got lots of great speakers lined up. You've got lots of open space events that you're going to be using. And what I want you to think about right at the start is to challenge everything everybody says, even me. When I start work with organizations, the first thing I say to them is, don't believe a word I say. Look for the evidence. Find out for yourself. Do not trust experts. Experts only talk about experience, and it's their experience through their eyes. And this is really what my speech is about today. It's about challenging yourself, your colleagues, your management, your leadership. And it is that challenge that you call upon yourself and your colleagues that changes organizations, whether it's Lean, whether it's Agile, or whether it's something else. It starts with people challenging what's there. And it starts with one or two people coming to a conference like this, getting more support, trying things out. How many people in here are involved with either training, coaching, or leading people within your business? You know what I'm talking about. That's great. Because everybody talks about the methods, the latest method, as if that is the silver bullet. And that is a deception. It is a lie. It is a seduction. And it's a way of avoiding the truth. And the truth is, we have very bad management in most organizations. Now, that's not because they're bad people. It is not because they are mean people. It is because they haven't had the right training. I grew up as an engineer. Some of you might remember Digital Equipment Corporation. That's where I cut my teeth. Okay, so for those of you who are into the software, I used to work on VAX clusters with OpenVMS. Okay, now that's probably in the depths of history. But I remember they brought out, Digital at the time brought out the 9000 series. It was the first generation of alpha chip that actually Intel bought later on. But this equipment was so big, and it got so hot, and it consumed so much power, it had three-phase electricity, not single-phase. All right, so it's 440 volts instead of 240 volts, three-phase. So we had to go on training if you had a shock on this, on resuscitation. It got so hot that it was water-cooled, right? And the CPU itself was $32,000 way back then. So they wanted people to work on this that knew what they were doing. So I had to go on a 10-week course before I could even open the cabinet to understand all the things about this very precious system that we produced. Yet, a couple of months later, they said, Stephen, we'd like you to go out to Ireland. One of the managers out there has gone on long-term leave. Would you mind taking over? And I said, well, management, I'm an engineer, I'm a technician. Why would I do that? He said, oh, you'll be okay. And when I got to Ireland, I thought, I'm not okay. And it dawned on me, this company spends so much time, it's a great company, I won't take that away from it, but just think about where their priority was. 10 weeks to open up a computer, but just go and take over the management of 40 other guys in Ireland. Don't worry, you'll be okay. Yet we are talking about the most complicated mind, as we know, in the universe. All right, dealing with people is much harder than dealing with the computers. I'd rather go back and do that. But having been thrown in at the deep end, I started to do okay after a while because I was an engineer and I started treating this as an engineering problem, which is what you normally do. Okay, and one thing about management when you start applying engineering principles to management and people is you get pretty fast feedback. Okay. So you learn very quickly. And I learned it was really about the people, what makes them tick. But also, my biggest problem when I started was they just didn't trust me. They didn't trust me. They'd never met me. They didn't know who I was. There was this guy from with a Welsh accent coming from the UK out to Ireland. Well, at least he's a Celt. Okay. But it was that trust, and just learning to overcome that trust. And that's what I've been doing for the rest of my life. In every single job is learning to overcome the trust issue. And that is the biggest barrier to all sorts of change, not lean, not agile, but all of them, is trust. And I really want to get into that in this presentation. This is the second time in a couple of weeks I've been back to Krakow, which I love. I've got lots of friends here, and I spend quite a bit of time here. But in the last couple of weeks, this is the second conference. The first one was with Paul Clipp at his great ACE conference. And I would reference the speech I gave there for you to go and look at the site. There's a video there. Why am I referencing that talk now? Because this is a sister talk to that one. If you're interested into the science and you're interested into the methods, then that's a very good talk. But I'm not going to talk about all the methods today, except maybe one or two very small ones. I'm going to be talking about my personal journey in helping people change, and the challenge, and how scary it gets. And you don't get change unless it's scary. So enough from me. I'm only on the introduction slide. This is not a scripted talk. This can go in a number of ways, depending upon your response. I am on Twitter and with Lean Voices. You can follow me on that as well. So let's just quickly get into this. these are some of the things I'll touch upon. I was thinking about the work climate, how it feels in the organization. But this thing about the workforce, as a coach on a one-to-one or with a team, you're trying to get some sort of freedom for that individual. Let's be honest, that's what we're talking about. Freedom to be able to do something different in the workplace to make it better. It is not about making rich companies richer. It's about enriching the people's lives and, more importantly, their work lives and their relationships. That's what gives long-term success, and the science supports that. Trust only comes when you've earned it. Okay? If you give trust at the outset, it's called hope. Very often we have hope, which is a triumph over experience, only to be disappointed later. So, how do we earn trust? How do we get trust in the workforce? I'll deep dive heavily into that. But I'm characterizing the two ways of working as direct and control. I don't like the term command and control because it sounds a bit more intentional. But actually, I think people generally want to direct and control things. All right? And by the way, most organizations that are accused of being command and control organizations are not. They're more like command and hope organizations. It's because the mechanisms are not there, and I want to talk about some of those mechanisms. Moving towards this, what I call listen and adapt thinking. And this isn't just for the leadership. This isn't just for the managers. It's for us doing the day-to-day work. Listen and adapt thinking needs to be in the very job design, our measurement. Listen and adapt is for everybody. Engaging, learning, leading, and improving. That's the skills that we're all learning. And then I'll go into this pretense, reality, and cost. And then we'll talk about leadership. So it's a mix of stuff, and it's not going to come out in a neat order like that. But we will touch on some of those things. So I'll come up with this statement that you can see. I'll let you read for that for a moment. Purpose is your passion. Do not attempt change unless you're really passionate about it, because you are going to get beaten up several times. You better be passionate about it. Vision is the world you want to create, which is different to what it is now. So you need to know how it is now and what you want changed. Strategy is the plan. How you're going to intervene. Are you going to do it one-to-one? Big rollout programs, all that. The strategy is the plan. But strategies don't work unless you're very good at the tactics. And the tactics are what help you survive the journey without getting fried. And I really want to talk about that today. So let me just put that into a more personal perspective. You can take this and put it into whatever situation you are and make it your own. For me, in the work that I do, purpose is my passion. What's my purpose? My purpose is quite simply to help people in organizations lead themselves into better work, to lead themselves into creating better places to work, and to actually lead changing the industry they're in. That is my purpose. That's what gets me out of bed. The vision, actually, it's a world where people are engaged and free to choose. We get innovation and ingenuity like you've never seen before, unlike the command and control world that has got us here today. It's not going to get us forward. Strategy, my strategy is using combinations of lean, agile, and what I call adaptive learning thinking, which I'm going to be talking about here. Tactics, this is having the right phrase. Learning the phrases. You'll notice one thing about Stephen Parry, he has lots of these phrases. Well, I do work on them because they catch people short, because you will be under attack. And there's phrases, one of the phrases I have is, we've got to get rid of the busy, busy, bang, bang work. Now, I don't need to explain that phrase any more than that. We all know what that is. It's different for all of you. But we know it's pointless, meaningless, repetitive, unnecessary work. And that takes out a big proportion of our time. And it doesn't add anything to the lives of people, the organizations we work for. It just is a cost. If you want to put a business perspective on that, all businesses have costs, but waste is optional. And busy, busy, bang, bang is waste, and the waste in human potential. So you can take that into whatever situation you have, whether you're coaching one-to-one, be clear on what you're trying to achieve. I'm going to talk about a phrase called work climate. Work climate is not culture, as I will explain going forward. Everybody says, you know, we'd have better lean implementation and agile if we can change the culture. Well, culture is such an empty, content-free word. It doesn't tell us anything. Yet we all think we know what it is. But it's a trap. I would much rather talk about the work climate, what it feels like to turn up for work, what it feels like when the alarm goes off and you've got to go back to that place again. Are you waking up before the alarm? Or you're putting it on snooze for the 20th time? Because you know what that workplace is going to be like. That's what I'm talking about changing. Where the workplace is just one of those places you don't want to go, and your biggest challenge in life is getting out of bed to go to work. And we are built more than that. These are some aspects of a work climate. You know, is it respectful? Do you have freedom in decision making? Is it challenging to the right degree? Are we focused on, in this case from a business perspective, our customers? Do we share knowledge with each other? Do we help other people to learn? Is our performance management system what we get rewarded for? A measurement system fostering inquiry, fostering collaboration, fostering fail-safe experimentation? Or is it stay in your job, do your busy, busy, bang, bang, and hit the numbers? One thing I know about software development is it's about turning thoughts into code. It's crystallized thought, and it runs the world today. All software is all that thinking, and you cannot command and control thinking or inspiration. You have to have the freedom, the experimentation to be able to do that. Yet we don't design organizations that encourage that. Very often we have to get what we want by overcoming all of those barriers with heroic efforts. We want to get the heroics out of this. But one of the biggest barriers is trusting management, the relationship between leaders, managers, and staff. That is really critical. Without trust, nothing improves. You'll get short-term gains. The environment can be toxic, red hot. Don't step out of line. Shut up and do. Do not challenge. That diminishes us. We don't give of our best. We do not contribute. We don't convert those thoughts into code anymore. Or it could be a really cool environment. I would say the Ale Conference is a really cool environment. Yeah? We can talk about these things. We can challenge. And we like playing games about challenging. What do you mean by that? There's a world of difference between asking somebody questions, if they're talking. There's a world of difference for asking somebody questions, to inquire, to find out. There's a world of difference between wanting to find out and I'm trying to find out how much he knows so I can shoot him down. The question may be the same, but the intention is different. But those environments where we want asking questions of other people to find out. Why? Because none of us are experts. We're all learning, and we've got to do it all again tomorrow to learn some more. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some theory. There is a saying called, if you treat your people well, they will treat your customers well, and the business will look after itself. Now I'm going to ask you a question, and be careful before you answer it. How many people agree with that? If you treat your people right, they will treat your customers well, and the business will take care of itself. How many agree with that? Okay, not too many, and I'm glad to say, because it's not entirely true. It is true in some cases by chance. But let's talk about it. The bankers were really treated well. Did they treat their customers well? Did the business take care of itself? No. So it's not about treating them well. It's a certain type of treating them well. And myself and Dr. Gary Fisher, who's now at Warwick University, did a study on what treating people well means and what type of treating people well leads to better outcomes for customers and better outcomes from the business. And guess what? It's most of what the Agile stands for and Lean stands for. It's the creativity, the autonomy, the ingenuity, and the respect for people, but with a directed purpose. Okay? With the wrong purpose, you can get the wrong outcomes, even if you treat them well. What Gary, who's a work psychologist, taught me is this thing called reciprocity, which is a big theory. It's not just a word. People think reciprocity is you scratch my back and I scratch yours. Well, it sort of is. All right, but this is one of the reasons why marketing guys give away pens and things like that, because if I give you something, you're more inclined to reciprocate. Well, it's not exactly true. It only works if you believe the gift or the favor is genuine. If you think the gift or the favor is not genuine but manipulative, you have negative reciprocity, which means before I was neutral about you, now I'm actually going to avoid you or actually undermine you. Okay, so you can have negative reciprocity. And this is what happens in organizations. Managers are sent on courses. We need some employee engagement. All right, so now, Bogdan, I'm engaging you, right? When you get the survey, my engage survey, this is what we do it. And lots of companies run these engage surveys, all right? But you know I'm only doing it because I've been told. So you sit there and say, yeah, you're all nice now. Now they're measuring you. But you don't get the behavior. It doesn't translate because there's some trust. There is, like technical debt, there's an emotional debt to be paid off. And I would say in most organizations, technical organizations, the emotional debt far outweighs any technical debt you've got. I would suggest that your emotional debt is actually what's causing you to have the technical debt. Even if the consequences are the same, underlying intentions cause an action to be reciprocated differently. We know this, okay? It's negative stuff. We've got to get it out. So even if you treat them well, the climate may not change. So that statement, treat your employees well, they will treat your customers well, and you will get, the business can look after itself, is absolute nonsense. But it is nice for us to think about. We would like that, but it is wishful thinking. And in Lean and Agile, we do not work on wishful thinking. So, in organizations, you'll feel people trapped. And it's not just the staff. It's managers and leaders. They're trapped. Wherever you find a loss of being able to choose, the freedom and the power to do what matters, there you will find the opportunity to lead. Now, most of you put your hands up because you are coaching people, either groups or individuals. That makes you a leader. That makes you a leader. Leadership is an activity, not a position. And we all have to take the challenge of leadership really, really seriously. It's not the guy at the top. It is you in every conversation. Trying to put the past in the past and moving on, but cleaning up, being authentic about it, challenging the bullshit. All right? You've all got bullshit detectors, all built in. But we never switch them on and use them. We need to switch them on. We need to be serious. So what do I mean by that? I put this graphic together a couple of years ago, which talks about performance, matter of choice, people having choice with the freedom to do, with the power to do. But what gets in the way? The work climate, if it's toxic, the role design, the process procedures, and even the methods I use. Some of them are really bad methods, but I've got to do it. The performance measures are going in the wrong things, and the leadership is all direct and control. All of these are a matter of design. That is a human construction. We design those from a particular way of thinking. If you're into direct and control, you'll design those in a particular way. If you're into listen and adapt, the structures, the measurement systems, the atmosphere will be very different. So what Lean and Agile are doing are trying to cut all that bureaucracy, trying to cut all those constraints, which lead to fear and blame. Because that's why we don't challenge. I'm asking all of you to learn to challenge. But you're going to need courage. You're going to need, most of all, honesty about the facts. And most of all, after the most of alls, is you need the tenacity. Because you're going to fall down more than you're going to walk forward. And that is a sign of a great leader is, doesn't matter how many times he falls down, he's going to be picking up and moving on. If you're not falling down enough, you're not learning enough. You get the behavior you design for, or in most cases, fail to design for. And it's your choice. You can sit there and do nothing. But every successful change has been somebody has been challenging, not the way we think, but the things we don't talk about. And I've noticed in recent years that even a number of people in here are challenging this. They're coming up with some methods and approaches to challenge the underlying lack of trust, the loss of freedom, the job that has no power. And then we want people to perform, and then we judge on their performance, yet we've created an environment that doesn't perform. It doesn't make sense. I used this for the first time in the ACE conference, so I'm going to use it here again. People often, I'm talking now from a business perspective. As a leader, they say, we're going to go lean, we're going to go agile, we're going to go Six Sigma, we're going to go da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm not a lover of Six Sigma, by the way. And those of you who put Six Sigma with lean, well, you get the worst of both worlds that way. But what management in their wisdom quite genuinely expect, they've heard the hype. If we do this, we'll get a performance. Well, what's our performance today? This is what it is in whatever you are performing, whatever you're measuring. You say, right, if we go agile, we go lean or whatever, we can achieve this. That's what they've told us. So they do this. What do? They go out with the tools and methods for improvement. They go and employ a scrum coach or something and think that he's going to change the world. All right? So they get these, and then they have what I call the sheep dip program. We'll send them all on the course. So they come back after 2 days, they're all fired up, and then we disappoint them again. Okay, because they realize they can't put into practice what they went away and learned. All you've done is succeeded in reminding people of how miserable the workplace is. And how great it could be, but it never is going to be. Okay? So we demotivate them. So then after this, we measure the performance again. Sure, you got some performance, but it's short-lived. The novelty effect draws out. But it's way below. So what is the gap? The gap is what I'm talking about here. It's this perspective. It's the people. It's also the perspective that we are moving from direct and control to listen and adapt. That means everybody. It means moving away from siloed vertical thinking to horizontal thinking in how it works. From engaging with the customer to develop the requirements for software, how it's developed, how it gets onto the infrastructure, how it's used, how does it generate value for the customer, how it's updated and how it's retired. That is how we should manage the business, because that's what creates values. Silos do not create values. So the perspective is horizontal, not vertical. The work design locks us into doing more of the busy, busy, bang, bang stuff. That has to change. Methods alone won't do that. The measurement system, if you're measured on how much busy, busy, bang, bangs you get for the buck, then you're going to do more of that. And then you're going to be rewarded for that. But actually, you're making things worse. So changing that measurement from vertical management to horizontal management, really, how does it create value for our employees? How does it create value for our customers? And how does that create wealth for everybody, including the business? That's what the measurement system in Lean talks about. And behavior. But behavior is not an input. It is an outcome of your design. But it needs people to challenge that. You have to challenge. But you have to challenge in a way that doesn't get you fried, and I'll talk about that in a moment. That's what I call the work environment. It's adaptive learning, trusting work climate. We're engaging and understanding, learning and sharing, leading, improving and changing. That's the cycle we go through, either as an individual level, department level, or end-to-end. It's the same thing. It's like one of those little Russian dolls. All right? It's the same thing at different levels. If you, as a coach, are engaging and understanding your student, if you are listening or learning what's his world like or her world is like, really deeply getting into that world, and then sharing that with them and saying, well, how are you seeing that? And opening up how they actually see that world. Then helping them lead to better decisions with a different perspective. What are the assumptions that they're making? Those of you who are coaches, this is your bread and butter. But we need to be doing this if you're a department manager with another department. We need to be doing this as if you're another organization working with another organization. It is the same skills. It is the Russian dolls. And the principles are the same. Engaging, learning, leading, and improving. And this presentation is about what I've done for those 4 things over the last 20 years. Because I'm still doing that. And I still don't have all the answers, but I have a lot of better questions now. Worst phrase I get, people say, well, Stephen, you've obviously got a lot of experience. In your experience, what would you do now? All right, about this situation. And I'm saying I tend not to argue from experience because your situation from just that question is not enough. It's more complex than that. And then that leads to the worst consulting question as well. When a customer says to you, well, what do you think I should do? And the consultant says, well, it depends. That drives customers nuts. But it is a true answer. But they don't want the true answer. They want you to know. They want you to take the uncertainty away. Because we're all scared. Instead of dealing as it is as a reality, we pretend it's something else. Oh, I know this, I've seen this before. And hey, it doesn't matter about this, it's the methods. I remember doing 2 lean transformations with some of the stuff I'm about to show you. And the leader of the organization turned around to me and said, Stephen, he said, look, I love all these results. He said, but can you just stick to the methods and all this touchy-feely stuff we can leave? I thought, gosh, loss of choice, freedom, and opportunity, engaging, leading, blah, blah, blah. So I had to go through that mantra. And I said, well, it's not quite like that. So you have that. And another occasion, we had it the other way around. These guys did a fabulous presentation on how to change this organization. The senior management team loved it. They were nodding all the way through that. And the managing director got up, and then he said, look, he said, I don't care about the methods. I don't care about the training. They're important. He said, what I want, he said, and what I want more is the motivation that I've just seen on that stage. Not realizing the reason they were motivated was because they'd shown everybody the mess. For the first time, we'd had agreement on what the mess was. They'd switched the lights on at a really great party to see all the mess. And sometimes you get some managers from the back shouting, hey, switch the lights off, we were enjoying ourselves. But this manager said, no, I just want the motivation. Take all the other things out. If you can, Stephen, just come in and motivate. So they thought I was going to put on a pair of tights and a purple jacket and be Mr. Motivator. I said, it's not about clappy, happy people. It is about giving them the choice, the freedom, and the power to do things with their lives they couldn't do before. Because we were facing the reality, not the pretense. That is the performance gap. The pretense keeps that gap open. So engaging, learning, leading, improving. Some of you have seen these slides before, but I'm going to talk to them very differently this time. Engaging. In a work situation now, does the job design allow all your staff to engage with your customers and your users? Very often in development, it is the product manager that goes out, comes back and tells them. That is one of the worst features of that implementation. You're just hoping that he gets it right. It's a single point of failure. It is a single point of view that is not open to challenge in the normal way. It is one of the biggest defects. And you need to eradicate that. Everybody needs to engage, and you need different opinions. And you need to have questioning techniques, and I'll talk about the question techniques shortly. In the world that you work, is everything forbidden unless it's permitted, which is locked down? But you can go a little sand pit, you can work in there. Or is actually the whole thing's the sand pit, but over here you've got to be very careful because there's a SOX compliance or something. They're very different mindsets. Learning. Do staff routinely, and think about yourself, and do you routinely share business information with your senior management? In small organizations, we often do that. I know there's a couple here that do that day in, day out. Do staff routinely collaborate and problem solve with their senior managers? In some of the larger organizations, they very rarely see the manager, the senior manager. What is the management focus? It's either on the direct and control or the listen and adapt. Is it on employee utilization, cost reduction, work intensification, or even worse still, task intensification, which is all that context switching? Because it's the utilization of somebody's time instead of the creation of value. In the world of lean and agile, we are looking at creating value for everybody, not maximizing the utilization of time. Completely different mindset. What you reward is differently, the behavior. Or is it, which I'm glad to say in most software companies, because they wouldn't survive unless they did, creativity, customer outcomes, does it do what it says on the tin? Problem solving, learning, sharing, knowledge, collaborating. Collaboration should be natural, not forced. But there's no collaboration here. We're focused on single goals. So there's no chance of learning. You learn through collaboration. You learn from sharing the mistakes. Leading. This is you guys. Do you foster a no-blame climate so that teams can work on them? One of the worst things that a manager can ever say is, I don't ask my staff to bring me problems, I ask them to bring me solution. How dumbass is that? Why? Because it's very easy to spot the problems. But you're now preventing them from being surface and saying, George, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. Because that's empowerment, isn't it? There we are. Go away and think about that. But you can't, because I've got the busy, busy, bang, bang numbers to do. So I ain't going to think about it. So you now feel foolish for bringing this up, so you're not going to say anything anymore. So the waste, the problems go underground, and you feel it's futile. It is futile. Futility. Then you might read a book, you come to an ale conference, and you get all motivated, and you go back and you'll try, and then, what about those busy, busy, bang, bang numbers? And you're back into the futility bucket. Really easy. Who does the leading? Everybody. It's an activity. Do we exchange opinions or do we exchange facts supported by evidence? Facts supported by evidence should be natural. Well, in my opinion, in my experience, those are two phrases, if you're leaders, you latch on to, say, oh, that's a good opinion. So when did you do that? So what were the facts? What was the situation really like? Oh, so it was nothing like this, really. When you dig down, but we accept that. In my opinion, we accept it. Experts do not say, in my opinion. Not real experts. They say it depends. In this situation we get this, but we'd have to run an experiment because it might be something different going on. Good leaders at all levels reserve the right to be wrong. I reserve the right to be wrong. And I reserve the right to change my mind in the light of good evidence. That is a strength, not a weakness. Yet management thinking says, you should know. You know all the numbers. You should predict. Well, some things are unpredictable. It's okay to change your mind. How many leaders, how many politicians would do that? You know, we're going to introduce this stuff into the health service, blah, blah, blah. We're going to run some experiments, and we're going to learn from this. Do you think they're going to get elected? Do you think what the opposition are going to do? Get a grip. You don't know what you're doing. Improving. A lot on this list. Do you and your employees influence the end-to-end business or just your little piece in the process? I would say in development you have a lot of input on the products and services, but later on in your value stream, when you get into the infrastructure, they don't, which is a shame. Staff free to choose the methods they will use to improve the business, or do you say, we don't do that other stuff now, we do Agile, we do Lean, we do Six Sigma. None of them have the silver bullet. Two things to remember. No one method can cure everything. But we act as if we are. We get zealots. We get Agile zealots, Lean zealots, Kanban zealots, Scrum zealots. That's the one possible way. Well, you know they don't know what they're talking about. Not yet. They're on a process of learning. The other thing that you must learn, and I'm saying this, it sounds a bit dogmatic, but I've learned this the hard way. You cannot pick and choose your methods, cherry pick them and put them together into something the same and say, see, I've integrated this. Because most of those methods are built to solve a particular problem with a particular intention and a philosophy behind that method. I've seen Lean methods coming out of the Lean world and being used in command and control, mass production type environments to help the command and control go faster. Okay, because it's a two-edged sword. Because we've taken the methods without the thinking behind it, the theory of what we use it for. So then we give it a bad name. You're not doing it right. Are staff encouraged to run fail-safe experiments? You can see I'm talking about the work environment. Creating trust. Is it toxic? Can we do these things? How do we start approaching that? How do we become cool? We have to challenge. We have to look at the emotional debt. And we have to pay it off, or at least write it off. I was fortunate in about 1999 to bump in a couple of people that were going through quite a revolutionary process at that time. It was through the landmark education process. Anybody in here heard of them? Anyone or two? It's still going, but what I learned from them is how do we open up this conversation to talk about things we're not supposed to talk about? And this is what I'm asking you to do, because what I'm about to say has led to some of the biggest breakthroughs in the transformations that I've had since 1999. Because for the first time, I was taking on this issue. We all knew these taboo issues were there, but we didn't quite know how to deal with it. So this is one of the methods. This is a real case. It's in local government. This is an enterprise architect guy. In the room were some developers, testers, enterprise architects, field service guys, the whole value chain. And they all came in, and after about 2 weeks of working, we were then coming up with a redesign of the organization. But we had to address the emotional debt. We had to have a new formula for trust. We had to have a new trust strategy and how we were going to be open and honest going forward. But let's be honest about what we are not honest about. This is the process we went through. Now, there was other things going on, but I'm talking about the thing that really makes the change. It's not the methods of Agile, Lean, or anything else. These guys sat down and they said, I asked the question, what are we saying about ourselves? We're saying we invest in our people, we have the tools to do the job, our products and services work well, all of these things. That's what we are saying about ourselves. So we've got a big list of things we say about ourselves. And then I said, let's rate these things then. How often do we say this? Out of 10. 10 being all the time, 1 being occasionally. All right? So you can see these were all, it doesn't matter what it is. And it's blurred deliberately because it would be embarrassing for these guys. Okay? These are the things that we were saying, but the list is the type of things I've shown. I'm going to show you a list, a different list in a minute, of the type of things they said. There's a list, all right, from 1 to 10. This is what we say it's like. All right, 10 being good. I'll be saying it a lot. Okay, so some things we say it not so often, other things. We call that the pretense line. This is what we pretend it's like. This is what we go around saying it's like. We invest in our people, we've got the tools to do the job. We give them time, we give them freedom, autonomy, we collaborate. That's what we say. And then I say, but what's the reality? So you then plot the same. And between the two is the authenticity gap. That is the gap, the size of which tells us how much we lie, how much we pretend. You cannot transform an organization if you're pretending it's not like it really is. You have to get to the truth of the matter. Some of the things that they put up on here was, we produce really good reports to our clients. The reality is, they're all made up. Why is that? Because it avoids problems. So, when I say it made up, that's not strictly speaking true. All right? What they said, well, we're not lying, we are making it more transparent. Because the customers don't understand all of these things. It's smoke and mirrors. Because they knew that if they would give the real data out to their very senior managers and their customers, they would be asked to go and sort things out. So what you're left with now is customers going to the senior managers saying, we're still getting complaints from our customers. And we can say, well, the data's fine. It's all good. Look, these are our SLAs. And we're meeting them all, and they're all green. No problem. And in the world of Lean, we say, no problem is a problem. And if all your SLAs are green, the way to improve standards is to turn them all red and raise the standard. Now they're not all green. Now get to the next level. All right, that's how you improve standards. But they were afraid, very afraid. They said, we don't talk to other people about outside IT about the reality because we are too afraid, because we know we're underperforming. So we use the numbers in a way to say that we're doing okay, we're not too bad. This was in government. IT was about supporting old people in homes, handicapped people in renovating their houses so that they could live in them. We changed all of that, and we did change the lives of the citizens because we got honest. But that's a different story for a different time. But you can only improve things when there's honesty. It was a bit like I was asking these guys and I was training these guys to go up to the management team and basically say, look, you've got a baby, but the baby's very ugly. All right? And that's a tough place. You need training. You, as leaders at a one-to-one level, have to learn to look the ugly baby in the face and saying, only a mother could love that. Okay, but you have to go through that. Okay, did. These are the types of things, and this is toned down, really toned down. So they would talk, the management then said, we cannot live like this. Why? Because what was the cost? All right, this is the pretense reality, but what was the cost? Low self-esteem, futility. You know, George is still feeling futile down there. No fulfillment, withdrawing, you're not contributing. The willing contribution, you won't see there. You have to command and control, monitor me. Customer dissatisfaction, little or no innovation, cynicism, blah, blah, blah. And I ask a very important question, which went like this. If that is the cost that you are paying, what is the benefit? There must be a benefit. And I think I've communicated already. The benefit is this. You don't have to take responsibility. And if you don't take responsibility, you won't get blamed. That was the only benefit. We said, put that in the balance. So, does this even out? They said no. So they threw that out. And they did transform quite dramatically. And that's a process I've used a number of years in various forms. Pretense, reality, cost. And then the final, well, what's the benefit? And the benefit is always the same. If I don't take responsibility, if something goes wrong, I won't get blamed. Because it's not safe to fail. So we pretend it either doesn't fail, or we never take the responsibility to try something that might fail. These are questions, I added these last minute, last night. I thought, okay, I need to give some questions. This is from my A3 training stuff, which I owe a great debt to John Shook, who has written by far the best and most superior A3 book there is, in my opinion. It's called Managing to Learn. And what I like about it, it's about A3, but everybody thinks A3 is about solving problems. It's not. It's about creating problem solvers. It's about developing people that can have the honest conversations, that can look at the facts, not the opinions, dig deeper what's really going on. I did a survey quite recently, because we've done lots of A3s in organizations, and the surprising fact is the problem is on the A3 that I want to solve. We go through this, but halfway through, 78% of the A3s, halfway through, change the problem statement. It is something completely different. And we've tracked this with over 1,000 A3s. But think about the implications of that. That's the problem I've been given to my manager to solve. Normally we jump to the solutions because we accept the problem and then we don't really fix it. But it's not surprising because we've even framed the problem wrong, because 98% of the A3s have their problem statement changed to a different problem. It was not that, it was this. Because we assume the experts, in my opinion, in my experience. Never do that. Never do that. These are the questions that we try to get managers to stop asking people. You raised the problem, you fixed it. Look, if I were you, I would do this. Yeah, well, I did your job. You know, I got where I was being good at you, so this is what you should do. But the job's changed dramatically. You've been in your job the last 10 years now. It's changed. You know nothing. All right? In some cases, weeks out of the job means you're out of date. Certainly years out of the job, you're out of date. A lot of managers say, don't involve other departments because we've got our busy, bang, bang numbers to get, blah, blah, blah. I don't want you talking to them, and I'm in competition with them for an award anyway. When we need collaboration, you can see how these conversations we accept. The words we use in the workplace, we accept. We get delegated a problem, we accept. Because the manager knows best, we assume. What does your experience tell you? Worst. What's your gut feeling? And I quote the late, great Carl Sagan on this one, when asked, after setting up the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, the SETI program, some news reporter said, well, I can't do an American accent, well, Mr. Sagan said, what's the chances of life out there? He said, well, we just don't know. And he said, well, the reporter said, well, what's your gut feeling? And Carl turned around and he said, well, I tend not to think with my gut. Okay, so don't do it. It's full of all sorts of stuff. If you want to know how crap we are at evaluating that stuff, another great book is Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. I like to think fast, so I got the audio version. That's much easier. I would recommend the 2 audio versions. There's the 30-minute one, which actually goes on for 45 minutes. Get that, and I will listen to that first. Get it on audiobooks. If you're into the book, you can do that, but it's a hell of a long read. But it's fabulous. It's one of the best books. Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. And then get the audio version of it, and you will know what I mean. We are lazy thinkers. We jump to conclusions. There are times when that is okay. If somebody shouts fire, you don't want to say, well, where did it start? How big is it? You just want to get the hell out, and thinking fast is good in those situations. But improving things, when they've been broken for a long time, need some deep thinking. So force it. The other statement, whose fault is it? These are questions. I'm not going to go through all of these. These are questions. So why are we talking about this? So you've just been delegated something by your manager. So why are we talking about this? What is the real problem? What do you think is going on? Right, so what conclusion? Why did you draw that conclusion? What data did you base that on? On this chart. Okay. Are there any other interpretations on this chart? What data is that supported on? How accurate is that data? Now imagine if you're a manager, a traditional manager, and I've just asked somebody to do some busy, bang, bang work, and they come back with all these questions. What's the next thing? You're on a performance improvement plan, mate. So managers have to learn to encourage this questioning, because that's where we all learn. So that's why we teach managers not to ask these questions, and we teach managers to get used to these questions, because that's what's going to change the business and keep us all in work. And will get us out of work in the morning. The organization needs to consider measurement systems. The leader, create a blame field culture, and I'm using leaders as a position here. Have patience. But this one, A3 coaching, visual management, seeing the whole thing, not just your bit. Encourage staff to question, planning time for improvement. Staff, learn more about other functions and how they operate. They usually just know their bit, or even their sub-bit in the busy, bang, bang process. And they have to learn to trust management. And learning to trust management and building that trust between management and staff starts by facing the reality gap, the shock of that reality. As I said, putting the lights on at a really great party, the job of you, the managers and the leaders, is when you put the lights on at the great party, is to keep them on. Don't turn them off. That's me. Thank you.